In the USA, a formidable winter storm has been sweeping the country. So let's take this opportunity from beautiful Medellin, Colombia, to review some words talking about extreme winter weather, crisis management, and how you can use these words in business as well. First, let's talk about the size of the storm. Formidable. In the news, this storm has been called formidable, which means powerful and demanding respect. In business, you might describe a tough competitor as a formidable opponent. Next, we have significant magnitude and widespread. The problems caused by the storm are of a significant magnitude. This means they're serious, large scale, and affecting a lot of people. Next, gripping. You'll hear that the cold is gripping the country. Now, to grip something means to hold it tightly. We also use gripping to talk about holding your attention. So for example, a presentation, a story, or even an advertisement can be gripping if it's impactful and interesting. Now let's talk about the impact and the effects this has had on the country. First, it has crippled the infrastructure. Now, to cripple means to disable or paralyze. So you might say that a cyber attack crippled a company's servers. Next, we have grounded. Thousands of flights have been grounded, which means they've been canceled or forbidden from flying. We also use this to talk about punishing a child if they misbehave. So for example, you can say, you're grounded. You can't watch TV, you can't see your friends, you just have to sit in your room and do your homework. Next, standstill. Cities have come to a standstill, meaning all movement has stopped. We also use this in negotiations. For example, talks reached a standstill because neither side would agree on the price. Finally, let's talk about how the storm is affecting human behavior. But before we look at that, a quick tip. Let's talk about effect with an E and effect with an A. Remember that effect with an A is an action, it's a verb, and effect with an E is the end result, and it's a noun. However, it's not that important because we pronounce them both effect. So the only difference you need to worry about is if you're writing. And if you're bored and you want to have a little fun with your native speaker friends or colleagues, just ask them what's the difference between effect and see what they say. Now, how are people reacting to the storm? Well, the first thing people did was rush to the stores to stock up on essentials. This just means to buy more than what you need. And if everyone does this at once, out of fear, we call this panic buying. After stocking up, everyone went home to hunker down and ride out the storm. We use ride something out when we're in a bad situation and can't escape, so we have to endure it and be strong. For example, the investors had to ride out a full year of low profits before seeing a return on their investment. Hunker down just means to stay in a safe place during a bad situation. And the last thing everyone did was check up on or check in on their friends and family. This means to call or visit someone because you're concerned about them. For example, after his divorce, many of his friends checked in on him every day to make sure he was doing all right. The owner of the company comes to the office once a week to check in on things. Now, there is an interesting distinction that one of my students asked me about yesterday. The difference between catch up with and check in on. Now, they both mean to call someone or see someone, but if you say catch up with, it means you want to talk to someone, hear about what's new in their life, and it doesn't imply that they're not doing well. So it's quite common that if you have a friend who isn't doing well, instead of saying, I'm going to check in on you, you should say, I'm calling to catch up with you. It kind of starts a conversation off on a more positive note, and it doesn't suggest that they're not doing well. So it's much more common, even if you are checking in on someone, to say, hey, I'm just calling to catch up, to keep the conversation positive and light. So that's all we have about our winter storm. If you want more practice for the words I mentioned below, comment cold, and I'll send you some of the same exercises I use with my private clients. And of course, if you have friends in the US, be sure to check in on them and subscribe for more videos like this.